then the independence of the judiciary by that itself gets threatened, because the government then selects their own kind of people or judges who lack that backbone or independence, etc. Therefore, selection is a very important element in ensuring independence of those people. These people should be completely independent of the government. So they can have retired judges in them. They can also have other eminent public figures. But they must be people who are completely independent of the government, because selection of judges must be completely independent of the government. One of the qualities should be, does the judge have any sensitivity or understanding of the social reality of the country? If a judge makes a remark that people who are looking for night shelters which are provided free to them are parasites, then he has no understanding of the social reality of the country. You are right. Today you cannot take it for granted that even the judges will be independent or even the CAG or the CEC will be independent. Today there is a problem.
Welcome to another episode of Corruption, and today we have a very special guest, and he is Prashant Bhushan. I think we don't need Prashant Bhushan, doesn't need any introduction. Even in this hotel itself, when we are coming from the dining hall, many people were greeting him. So he's such a well-known person. So we do not need any introduction to Prashant Bhushan. And at least one thing I must say, that he is one of those rare advocates who has been relentlessly fighting for peace and also human rights. So I'm really privileged that you could spare time for this interview for Northeast Now, and I'm really delighted.
It's my pleasure. Thank you.
Yeah. Now, my first question. So your father, Santi Bhushan, was a very famous lawyer, advocate, and he was also the law minister, cabinet law minister in Morarji Desai's cabinet. Now, were you inclined to law from your childhood?
No, I was not. Actually, I first wanted to study physics, then philosophy, then I went to study philosophy of science. But in between, when I was in my BA, I had witnessed Mrs. Gandhi's election case in the Allahabad High Court and then in the Supreme Court. So I thought that even law is quite interesting. But despite that, I went to Princeton University to do a PhD in philosophy of science. And it's only after I got disillusioned with what was being done in the philosophy departments in America and broadly across the world that I came back and then started my practice in India.
So initially you were not interested in...
Not particularly. And to the credit of my father, though he was a very famous lawyer and he obviously wanted me to become a lawyer as well, but he never pushed me towards law. He allowed me to do whatever I wanted to do. I first went to IIT, quit after 6 months, then studied economics seriously for some time, then got more interested in philosophy and physics and so on. So my academic career was very convoluted, and he allowed me to do whatever I wanted, whenever I wanted, and he was of course happy that I came back to law.
Finally you became a lawyer. Yeah, great. So, a very simple question. How do you see the present political scenario in the country, in India?
No, it's very frightening because we have a almost communal fascist government in office, and which is hell-bent on destroying or suborning every independent institution in the country. So they have virtually suborned. Of course, they have almost total control of the mainstream media. They have substantial control of the judiciary. They have total control of the election commission. They have substantial control of the Controller and Auditor General. They have almost total control of the investigative agencies like ED, CBI, IT, IB, and so on. And they are seeking to control, of course, they have substantial control of Parliament also, even though they don't have a majority in Parliament, but having the kind of Speaker and the kind of Vice President who run both houses of Parliament, they are able to prevent any discussion that they don't want. They are able to push through any bills that they want to in just this bedlam without even any proper voting, etc. So, India's democracy is in a very, very, very delicate stage, very precarious stage. And therefore, it's very worrying for everybody in the country. And of course, there is this whole communal assault on minorities in this country, which is taking place on the streets, to some extent in the courts, in Parliament, by passing communal laws like the Citizenship Amendment Act, etc. And of course by the governments, which is now spending huge amounts of money and huge amount of its time and resources in just promoting Hindu festivals, Hindu tourism, etc. So it's a very bad time for the country.
Okay, now in this scenario, you have very succinctly, you have very elaborately described the present situation in the country. But as because you come from the legal fraternity, so in this scenario, do you think that judiciary has a role to play? And if the judiciary has a great role to play, is our judiciary playing that role?
The judiciary is the most important regulatory institution under our constitution, because it was the judiciary which was entrusted the job of protecting fundamental rights of citizens and ensuring that the executive and the legislature function within the bounds of their power. Today, fundamental rights are being trampled upon, especially by this government, by this communal fascist government. Today, most of our institutions are being suborned and compromised and taken over by this government. Today, the executive is clearly exceeding the bounds of its authority given by the constitution. Sometimes Parliament is also exceeding the bounds of its authority. There are no proper discussions which are, virtually no proper discussions which are allowed in Parliament. The speakers are running roughshod over the opposition, the Vice President is running roughshod over the opposition, and it is really the job of the judiciary to correct that. MLAs, etc. are being bought and sold by the BJP, governments are being toppled and so on. It's the job of the judiciary to stop this and to correct this. But unfortunately, the judiciary has not been able to play that role. Is not, to a very substantial extent, it is not able to act as the bulwark against authoritarianism, against fascism, etc. And the reason for that is that the judiciary's independence has been compromised by this government in four ways. One is that when there is a strong an almost fascist government in office, and many judges who are not very strong internally, they are unable to resist what the government wants them to do. They feel fearful, just out of fear. Then there is this lure of post-retirement jobs. Many people like Justice Gogoi was given Rajya Sabha membership, Shivam was made governor, Nazir was made governor, this Arun Mishra was made NHRC chief, and so on. So there is the lure. Then this Khanvilkar has been made Lokpal. So there is the lure of post-retirement jobs. Then this government has developed a technique to prevent the appointment of independent judges. So for the last 10 years since this government has been in office,
I have a separate question on that. Yeah.
They have virtually prevented the appointment of independent judges. And lastly, they have used all the agencies under their control, and they have brought almost all agencies under their control to prepare dossiers on judges. And if they find any weakness of any judge, they go after him to blackmail him in order to make him do what the government wants him to do. So using all these techniques, they have been able to substantially erode the independence of the judiciary.
Now here, one thing I remember, that former Chief Justice of India, at the time of his retirement, I think, he was telling that, okay, judiciary cannot play the role of an opposition. So what do you say about that?
No, it's not the role of the opposition, but the judiciary is supposed to play the role of an opposition to fascism, of an opposition to authoritarianism, of an opposition to communalism, of an opposition to every assault on the constitution and fundamental rights.
And to see that rule of law.
Yes, opposition to the destruction of the rule of law.
Yeah.
And we are seeing all this happening in this country. And the judiciary has not been playing that role. So yes, it can't be the political opposition, but it is opposition to all these fascist trends that we are seeing in this country. It is supposed to play the role of opposition to all this fascism in the country.
Yeah, that means when judiciary, you mean to say when judiciary plays its role properly, then they will have to oppose all these things.
Yes.
Then they have to actually stop happening all these things.
Of course, that's the purpose why the judiciary...
So you need not be a political party, you need not be a political opposition political party, but you should do your work properly, isn't it?
Absolutely, absolutely.
Now, my next question. I don't have his quote, now I don't remember the quote correctly, but the essence of this he's saying, well, now I'm referring to Falias Naiman, the famous advocate jurist. He was saying that in one of his books he said that, you see, there should be a very cordial relationship between the judiciary and the government. Is not healthy for democracy. And he said that if there's no contradiction between the judiciary and the government, then I think that country is not worth living. So, what do you say about that? That means about the independence of judiciary.
Yes, yes. So the constitution makers recognize that because the judiciary is to police the executive and the legislature, because the judiciary is to protect fundamental rights of the citizens from assault by the government, primarily by the government, therefore the judiciary has to be totally independent of the government. And that is why in the code of conduct also for judges it is said that judges should not hobnob with politicians, etc. So therefore, the judiciary has to be totally independent of the government in order to perform its role of protecting fundamental rights, protecting our democracy, protecting institutions from assault from the government. Primarily the assault comes from the government. And therefore, judiciary cannot just invite the Prime Minister for Ganesh Puja.
That is why two things I remember here, that Prime Minister Modi, he was invited by the earlier Chief Justice of India, Mr. Gagay, to his office and offered him a cup of tea.
No,
And
the Chief Justice can invite the Prime Minister to his office to discuss official business. That is perfectly all right. If you are discussing something about appointment of judges, etc., you can invite the Prime Minister. But you cannot invite the Prime Minister to your house for Ganesh Puja, for a purely private function,
then publicize it.
and then publicize it. That certainly is wrong and sends a totally wrong signal to the rest of the judiciary. If the head of the judiciary is seen doing all this, then you can imagine what kind of message is being sent to other judges in the country.
Did he invite him for discussing these things, or what was the occasion? If you remember
No, I don't know. I don't know why he invited him, but
No, sir, we have not seen the Prime Minister visiting the Chief Justice's office. I don't remember.
no, they can have a meeting, and the meeting would have to be somewhere or the other. It can be in the Chief Justice's office, or it can be in the Prime Minister's office also, but it has to be a purely official meeting, and it should have nothing to do with any other thing other than official business between the two.
Now, I'm coming to this question about the appointment of justice. So, now the present system is there is for appointment of higher judiciary. There is a thing called system collegium, and that many people have also criticized this collegium system for its opaqueness. And maybe in some cases, some of those criticisms are quite valid. But now, if there is no collegium, if we leave the appointment of which you wanted to say, and I want you now to elaborate on this. Now, first thing, how the independence of judiciary is connected to the appointment of judges. And this question has three parts. First part is that how the independence of judiciary is connected to the appointment of judges. Then second is the present prevailing system is the collegium system. What is the plus and minuses of collegium system, and what better ways to appoint judges so that the independence of judiciary is ensured.
So, in the National Judicial Commission case, and even earlier in the what is called the second judge's case, etc., when the Supreme Court said that the government should not play any significant role in the appointment of judges, the basis was, they said, and rightly said, that if you leave the appointment largely to the government, then the independence of the judiciary by that itself gets threatened, because the government then selects their own kind of people or judges who lack that backbone or independence, etc. Therefore, selection is a very important element in ensuring independence of those people. Same thing they said in the appointment of election commissioners also. When the court said, Constitution bench of the Supreme Court said that the government alone cannot appoint the election commissioners, because election commission also needs to be independent of the government. So therefore they said that the selection committee should have the Prime Minister, Leader of Opposition and the Chief Justice. But unfortunately the government has overturned that by bringing another law which says that the Chief Justice will be removed from this selection committee and we will only have Prime Minister, another Minister and Leader of Opposition. So again the government controls the appointment. So that is why this collegium system was devised. Now unfortunately even in the collegium system, though in the collegium system what we find is that slightly more independent judges are being selected, but there is still a lot of problems in the collegium system. One problem is lack of transparency. There is no transparency or virtually no transparency in the manner in which selections are made. I mean, we don't even know what is the criterion for selection. What are the qualities that they examine? How do they examine those qualities? Whether any short list is prepared, what is the basis for preparing the short list? People don't come to know anything until suddenly announcement is made that so and so is being appointed. Then that is why a lot of nepotism also flourishes in the appointment of judges. So because judges in the collegium have their own favorites and they try and push their own favorites. So it's not also a very desirable system. What I feel is that the collegium is sitting judges who are very busy with their judicial work. They don't have enough time to devote to the business of selecting judges. If you want to select 100 judges in a year in the high courts and the Supreme Court,
they'll have to sit very frequently and think.
They'll have to look at 1,000 people and from that they'll have to select 100 people. Now looking at the records and the performance and the qualities of 1,000 people requires time. You can't have sitting judges who are very busy devote that kind of time. That is why I have always been of the view that the Judicial Appointments Commission needs to be a full-time body. Cannot have ex officio people like sitting judges and law minister, etc. Should have full-time people, and these people should be completely independent of the government. So they can have retired judges in them, they can also have other eminent public figures, but they must be people who are completely independent of the government, because selection of judges must be completely independent of the government. And they should lay down a criteria, what are the qualities that they will look at. For example, one of the qualities should be, does the judge have any sensitivity or understanding of the social reality of the country? If a judge makes a remark that people who are looking for night shelters which are provided free to them are parasites, then he has no understanding of the social reality of the country. So therefore, you have to examine many qualities, whether he has judicial temperament or not, whether he has an open mind or not, whether he is willing to listen to argument or whether he comes with a closed mind. All these are important qualities. Apart from understanding the law or being honest, of course, if you ask any Chief Justice, what do you look at? They will say, we look at competence and we look at integrity. You ask them, are these the only relevant qualities? They will not be able to answer. You ask them, all right, how do you look at integrity? They say, we look at the IB report. As if IB report is a certificate of integrity. So there is a serious problem in the manner in which judges are being selected in this country today. But the problem was worse when the government was selecting the judges.
Now, when you are saying that, okay, an independent body should look into the appointment of judges, But then who is going to actually select that independent body?
So
how
we,
that independent body will be selected?
yeah. So we had said that you can have a collegium or a committee of, let us say, 3 senior judges or 5 senior judges of the Supreme Court, and let's say the Chief Election Commissioner, the Comptroller and Auditor General, and maybe few other such people who are all supposed to be independent constitutional authorities who together select 5 or 7 people who will form the selection committee for judges. But once they are selected, they will enjoy a fixed tenure, let's say 5 years, and during which time nothing can be done to them except the removal through some process of impeachment. Of course, impeachment is not a very useful process, but some process of removal which can be devised. But yes, that's how they should be selected.
But the problem is now in the present government, you know who is the Controller General, who is the Chief Election Commissioner. So now the problems also become really
yes,
very confusing. And
you are right. Today you cannot take it for granted that even the judges will be independent or even the CAG or the CEC will be independent. Today there is a problem. But we can only devise the best system that is possible.
Yeah. Because even now the collegium, because the judges are appointed by the collegium system, maybe the Chief Justice with the help of some judges and some eminent public people, I do not know, maybe that could be the better option. Now you mentioned one thing about impeaching the judges.
Yeah.
So now if you have to elaborate on that, that means here comes the question of the accountability of judiciary. So what do you say about the accountability of judiciary?
So I have always felt that this present system of impeachment is not all right, because it starts with 100 members of parliament having to sign an impeachment motion, ends with parliament voting, etc. This is not a proper system, and usually these decisions are taken on party lines. This is not a healthy system for seeking accountability of judges. What I feel is that we need to have a Judicial Accountability Commission or Judicial Complaints Commission consisting of, say, 5 people. It should be a full-time body also. And they should have the power and should be independent both of the government as well as of the judiciary. Of course, how that body will be selected is again a question, but we can devise a similar procedure for selecting that body also. They should have the power to entertain complaints against judges. And if they feel that there is some substance in the complaint, they can, and if they feel that the matter needs to be investigated, they should have an investigative machinery under their control through which they can get the matters investigated. And thereafter, if they find something wrong with that judge, they can hold a quick trial of that judge, appoint some 3 judges to hold the trial of that judge. And if he is found guilty, he should be removed. They should order his removal, and thereafter he should be automatically removed. Or any other action if they feel that he should be transferred or anything else. That's what should be done. It should not go to parliament or anything for voting.
Impeached in the past?
Ramaswamy's impeachment went quite far, but ultimately 2/3 of it was unanimously voted in the Lok Sabha, but since the Congress party at that time abstained, therefore it didn't get the majority of the total membership of the Lok Sabha, and therefore it failed. Some other impeachment motions have also gone some distance against one judge of Tamil Nadu. inquiry committee was appointed, inquiry committee gave a report against him, but then he resigned. So before the matter went for voting, he resigned. But no judge has been successfully impeached in this country, successfully removed in this country through this process of impeachment.
Now I'm almost coming to the end of the interview. I have only two questions. One, of course, concerning this legal profession. Now, you have spent how many decades in your practice?
About 42 years.
42 years, mostly in the Supreme Court.
Yeah.
Supreme Court. Now, as a lawyer who has practiced 42 years, and everybody knows Prashant Bhushan's credential and what he has been doing all these 42 years. Now, what is your advice to people who are coming to the legal profession?
So
The new generation of lawyers.
my first advice would be that you have to understand that the judiciary is in bad shape. There is hardly any justice being done in this judicial system, and therefore you will not derive much professional satisfaction from seeing justice being done. If you want to make money, yes, you can make money through this profession, but that should not be the main motive of a lawyer. The lawyer's role is to be a civilized warrior for justice. And therefore, the first thing that needs to be done is to reform the judicial system. We need extensive reforms so that it becomes an effective system for delivering justice. Today it is not. And second thing that I would like to say is that don't just become a mercenary lawyer to make money. Try and see that public interest is served by what you do. Try and see that justice is served by what you do. But it's difficult because the system has become so bad and so decrepit that it is difficult for any honest lawyer to derive satisfaction by seeing justice being done and yet make a decent living out of this profession. It has become very difficult.
Half a question before I come to my last question. This half question is, if I don't ask Prashant Bhushan about the relationship between bar and the bench.
So,
ideally, what should be the relationship between bar and the bench?
no, the bar must be courteous to the bench, but not subservient to the bench. I think this whole business of calling them my lord, etc., should be stopped.
This is ridiculous, isn't it?
Yes,
it's ridiculous.
It is ridiculous.
It is ridiculous.
It is ridiculous. And the judges, many judges get this feeling that they are indeed lords who can do whatever they want. And that's also because they have no accountability. They feel that they can do whatever they want and they will not be held accountable for anything. This is unfortunate. So, lawyers should not be subservient to the judges. If the judge is doing something wrong, the lawyer should have the courage to stand up and tell him that what you are doing is not correct. So, that should be the relationship.
This is
Yeah.
this eats into the system actually. Yeah. Now, this is my last question, and this is not a legal question. See, we have seen that you played a very important role in the movement India Against Corruption. And from India Against Corruption, this actually at the time when this India Against Corruption was, that Anna Hazare was sitting on Dharna, And first thing, actually here in Assam also, that was of course the last day, we also extended our support. We were sitting on a dharna on the first.
Yeah.
But the question is, see, all those people, the Bharatiya Janata Party, the RSS, BJP, now it has come very clearly. Those people were all involved in it. And that movement, that Anna movement, actually they used that movement to come to the power. Now, as because you were someone who was very closely involved in this movement, didn't you see these people, their true color at the time?
So to be honest, I did not. So there are two things which became clear subsequently. One was that the BJP and the RSS were indeed supporting the movement from behind in order to destroy the Congress and thereby come to power. And the second thing which also I did not see at that time was the true character of Arvind Kejriwal. That he was not really devoted to cleanliness in politics, etc. He was a person who just wanted power and used this as an instrument to get power. And he was in fact not devoted to any public cause whatsoever. And that he was not democratic in his functioning, etc. It's very unfortunate that I did not see all these flaws in his character during the time that I was with him, those 3 years that I was with him. But all those flaws in his character became clear only after the 2014 Lok Sabha elections. Became clear to me only after that.
I'm so very happy, Mr. Bhushan, that you so frankly, not only while answering the question, even in this last question, that I have not met you earlier, although I know about you. I observed your things in the Supreme Court, various cases, your involvement in those cases, Bofors, and many other things. But today, I have met you now. I spent about 1 hour with you, and in this 1 hour, I realized one thing, that you don't go by the standard, you don't go by the fold, the standard fold. You have your own mind. You judge things by your own understanding and experience, and it's quite rare in today's society. People are mostly ideologically judging. People goes by left, right, west, center, but what things have to be actually seen on its own perspective. Maybe this ideological binding influence our thinking. I'm so very happy in this little conversation, whatever conversation I had with you while having lunch and now in this conversation. And thank you. I'm really grateful to you
My
for
pleasure.
this interview.
My
Really
pleasure.
grateful to
My
you.
pleasure.
Thank you very much.